So here's why you don't close your clients on sales calls. And I will have to say sales calls is probably the most important part of the sales process, because once you are able to close a deal on a sales call, then that directly gets you money. And so a sales call is directly tied to the money. And that's why a lot of people pay for setters. So people who actually do the closing for them. But I think if you are a coach yourself, it's really important to understand the process, because then you can give specific instruction to the setters. And if the setters have some problem, you can kind of navigate it together and see what the problem is. But if the business owner doesn't understand the most important part of the process, which is sales, then it's just not good for the business. And so I kind of think you should really learn about this. And so let me paint a picture for you. This might be your scenario. You're currently pitching a lot, so you're talking a lot and trying to sell to them instead of actually listening. And you don't really have a clear structure. You're kind of just winging it every call, and you just turn up and kind of say stuff, and every call is kind of different, and you're getting a lot of objections you can't handle. And so there are three kind of ways to deal with this. There's what you should do on the call, the actual close, and what you should do with the objections. And obviously you should stay till the end, because objections is one of the most important parts. And I will have to say though, with objections, if you have good marketing, you shouldn't have any objections, and I'm going to talk about that soon. So what should you do on the call, and what should the general structure be? And so let me just quickly, briefly tell you what the structure should be. So you should ask their pain points, make them imagine their dream outcome, and then frame yourself as the solution. So how you should do this is you should kind of always probe first. So you should find out what the actual pain point is, right? Because if they don't have a problem, then you don't need to solve a solution. And with coaches, you're coaching because they have a problem. And so you really need to probe their pain points. A is for you to know what their pain point is, but B, also you need them to say it so they can visualize what's wrong. And so you also make them imagine their dream outcome. We'll go into this a bit later in the next point, but if you get them to imagine their dream outcome, that's when they're the most vulnerable. They're in like the very emotional state. And then if you frame yourself as the solution, that's like perfect. So let me give you an example. If you're a fitness coach, you would say your pain point. So maybe it's like, oh, I'm not, I want to get fitter because I'm ashamed of how I look. And then you make them imagine their dream outcome. So you'd be like, so what does that actually mean to you if you were able to solve this? So they'd be like, I could actually, you know, take care of my kids, or like be prouder with when I'm with my family, that kind of stuff. And then once they say that, then you frame yourself as a solution. So you'd be like, okay, so I actually tackled this exact problem, and I can help you with A, B, C. And then once you frame yourself as a solution, then boom, that's an easy sales call. Because at the end of the day, a sales call is they have a problem and you're the one to solve it. That's literally it. Don't overcomplicate things. And so, how should you actually do the close? So what should you actually do on the call? So this is like a kind of brief 5-step structure that I go into. I obviously can't cover this in depth on a YouTube video. If you work with me one on one, I'll obviously dive into this with you. But you start off with the situation. So you probe around and you ask what the situation is. So this is also kind of where you find out, you kind of build rapport, but also kind of find out why they're actually getting into this, and you try and ask as many questions as possible. And then you get them again to say their dream. So why do they actually want this? What do they want out of the program? What's their pain point? So what's actually stopping them from achieving this state? Is it because they don't have accountability, etc.? And then you're like, so how committed are you to actually solving this issue, right? You really press them for that. And then there you go with the close, so you frame yourself as a solution. So I'm going to get a little bit more specific, because I think that'll be helpful. But just in general, you want to be basically 70% listening, 30% talking. So the first half of the call should be just you trying to probe their situation, their dream, their pain, right? And their commitment. So this bit is literally all pretty much asking questions, and then you're getting them to reply because you want them to point out the actual problems, and you want them to verbalize it because that's really helpful. And so if they have a situation, again, I'm gonna use fitness coaches as an example. So you're gonna ask them the situation, and you're gonna probe really hard. So you're gonna be like, why do you actually want this? And what's the actual pain? So a lot of times I talk about the actual pain and the underlying pain, right? The surface pain would be something like, uh, I want to get, I just want to get fitter. But the underlying pain is usually not just because, people don't just get fit because they want to. They do it because they're worried about their status. They want to look confident, right? That kind of thing is really important for them to solve. And the harder you can dig at this pain, the more you can justify, charging high. Because if you're able to get them from not confident to confident, that's much better than going from 60 kg to 50 kg, right? Because the transformation is more important. And so another key point to highlight is you are selling the transformation, you are not selling the service. So what I mean by that is you're selling the fact that you can get them from someone unconfident to confident, rather than you're giving them you're giving them 5 training plans. A lot of people just try and like sell really hard and say the specific utilities of their services, but actually they just want the solution. So they actually just want to get fit and be confident. They don't care that you're giving them 10,000 training plans because there's loads out there. If you are the one to help solve their problem, they're willing to buy from you. And so that's really important. I would say that's probably the main key takeaway of this video. And so make sure to really probe and talk. And so how do you handle actual objections on the call? Right? And I would say firstly, be very prepared. So there's a lot of different examples, and I will kind of state the most common ones I see. It's either too expensive. I'll start later. That's super common. And I actually cover this question in another YouTube video I just uploaded. I literally have a free client call that I've uploaded on YouTube that's usually worth hundreds of dollars. You can watch that. I've tried coaching before and it didn't work. I can just do it myself. And you need to be able to practice all these objections because the same ones come up. So you might as well practice the exact objection. So how I would do it is you can literally call a friend or just literally look these up. If you don't know how to answer these, well, you can look on YouTube actually. A lot of them, like Shelby Sapp, they have really good objections for a lot of these answers. I obviously coach my clients how to answer these, but let's just say too expensive as an example. A good objection to too expensive would be, is it the actual price or the cost, right? So the price is what you pay now upfront, but the cost is what you pay years down the line when you don't actually get my service and you lose money because of that. And so you need to frame it as the fact that they're actually missing out not getting your program, right? And so there's just hidden costs down the line. And so this is really important to take note of. And so again, yeah, I would say the main thing again is generally in a sales call, you're listening and they're the ones talking. And again, you're framing the transformation. You are not selling the actual process. Okay? And so that's pretty much it. You can obviously work with me one to one. You don't have to, but there is a link in the description below. But if I had to really summarize this, I would say this is the same as even talking to a friend or any clients. You want to be the listener. And the better at listening you are, and the better they feel like they're getting heard, well, the easier it is to sell. And so make sure to listen properly, probe their pain, and then position yourself as the solution. And again, you're selling the transformation and not the actual service. And again, if you want more sales stuff, I have another video where I cover a sales call review with one of my clients. But I hope that helped. I'll see you in the next one.